of the I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Cedar Springs City Council to order at 7:03. Thursday, February 16th, 2023. Please rise and say the pledge with me if you feel so inclined. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I will call the roll. Miss Atchison. Here. Mr. Gross is not here. Miss Hamel.
Present.
Miss Nixon is not here. Miss Powell.
Here.
Race.
Here.
And Mayor Conley is here. At this time, I would entertain a motion to excuse Ms. Nixon and Mr. Gross.
I'll make that motion. A second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. They're excused. Ms. Nixon, as I said before we went into recording, Ms. Nixon is on her way, but the roads are terrible. I told her, please be careful and get here when you get here. And Mr. Gross is injured, and we do not want him out on the ice either. So that was a good choice for him. At this time, we will move on to public comments. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and public hearing portions of the agenda. However, council policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communicating with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concern will be elevated to the mayor and eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like a written response.
Madam Mayor, we do have a few people here who are on specific items on the agenda. Would you like to wait to hear from those people?
Sure, especially so that they know that they're on the agenda and that they don't have to come speak at public comment.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I have a little presentation to make.
sure.
This is on behalf of the DDA. We're having a fundraiser.
Oh, sure. You can, you don't have to go down front, but you can.
I have to.
Oh, because you have props.
These were the pennants that the DDA
Yes, the flags.
for downtown, and we gathered them up to sell to the public. This is the last one we have of this Kent Theater, so that's, hopefully we're gonna donate that to the theater.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've been working on this project for a while, and we're gonna sell them at some downtown activity after I get up inventory and kind of, some of them are in wonderful shape like this. We've donated one of these to our fire department. They each own cop. And then we have like 20 of those maybe. Those are some of the more.
They're in really good shape for,
Some
they're
of them are.
pretty old.
These are, we bought these when I was on the first DDA in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them have been lost and damaged too far, so. Anyways, I hope that if people want to get a hold of these and as a memorial, hang them up for Red Flag Day, and that's what we're
Do you
doing.
know how much the DDA is gonna ask for them?
They asked for $50. So there are some of them that are well worth $50. There are some of them that are probably better to cover up your lawnmower with or something, but anyway, we got this, we're gonna get them sorted out in inventory.
I love you, bros.
That's good stuff there.
Yep.
And,
Way to sell it.
get them out to the public for sale and.
Make a little money for our DDA for parks.
Yeah.
Okay,
They are quite beautiful.
they are.
Okay.
I thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Nope, I'm done.
And Rose, I just have to say, you are just phenomenal. You sit here on council, but you're also on the DDA. You go to all the library board meetings. You go to all the planning commission meetings. You go to women's club. You are literally at everything. I don't know how we would run this city without her.
Oh my God.
So, I just.
Well, thank you. That's what happens when you're retired. You get to do all kinds of things, don't you, Dwayne?
Well, I want you to know that we really appreciate how much you show up.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I do enjoy working with everybody in the city and all the folks, and it's just fun for me. Thank you.
Phenomenal. So thank you for that.
And Mayor, we do have a couple people on Zoom, and it looks like our illustrious library director might like to speak.
I would love to hear from Tammy.
Good evening, everyone. I am joining you from home this evening with the roads being the way they are,
I'm glad.
but I am happy to be here with you virtually. I would like to tell you about what happened at the library last month and a few things that are happening this month. So last month for babies and toddlers, we had 117 kiddos and 90 adults come to story time. We had 13 babies and toddlers sign up for the winter reading bingo. We just started back up baby story time. So we had 11 babies, 1 toddler, and 11 adults. We are having music and movement story time for 18 months to 4-year-olds. We had 31 kiddos and 33 adults there. We had 45 participants do the I Spy. We had 17 elementary age kiddos sign up for the winter reading bingo. We had 5 teens in the winter reading bingo and 12 adults. We had our first annual health fair. We had all the spots filled, so over 25 health professionals at the fair, and we had 31 people attend. For our adult programming, we had 1 student at our tech tutoring, 5 attend the writers group, 8 attend book club, 39 blood donors. We had 55 attendants at the Stitch and Chatter Crafternooners. We had 56 people come and work out with the enhanced fitness. We have 12 participants in the weight loss competition, and we had 20 participants attend our cooking with lavender. So this month, in fact, tomorrow, weather permitting, we are having a winter bird feeder class. So if your kiddos are looking for something to do tomorrow, that is still available for them.
When they have the day off.
Yes. And Saturday, we are partnering with the Harvest of Hope Foundation and having a snow fest. And lucky for us, we now have some snow. We have a live storytelling event going on the 28th of February, along with a stuffy sleepover. So if anyone has a stuffed animal that would like to come to story time and then spend the night in the library, please bring them on February 23rd.
All right. Do you have a grand total of how many people attended? It's okay if you don't.
For which event?
For all of it, a grand total for the month.
Oh, for the month, I do not have, I didn't add up everything for the
That's
month.
fine.
But I can get that to you guys.
That just sounds impressive, and I'm sure it's in the hundreds.
It definitely is in the hundreds.
So thank you.
But I can send you all an email letting you know how many people came into the library during the month of January.
Nice. Okay.
Absolutely. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Cammie?
The stuffy overnighter, are the kids gonna stay overnight or just the stuffed animal?
Just the stuffies, just the stuffed animals.
That's good.
Yeah, yes, they're gonna have a good
Great
time
plan.
too. Yes, they have activities they will be doing. It will be a busy night for them.
That's good. Will there be pictures?
Yes, yes, there will be pictures of them completing their activities.
Okay, good to know. That should be fabulous. Those should totally be posted on the library page.
They will be. Stay
Oh,
tuned.
that's
Stay tuned.
wonderful.
Madam
That's
Clerk,
fabulous.
anybody else on Zoom who's looking to make public comment?
We could ask to see if there's anyone else.
Anyway, thank you, Cammie. That was wonderful. The library is like the highlight of my evening as city council, running the city council. All right, anyone else, Madam Clerk?
Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to make a public comment at this time? I'm not seeing anybody raise hands or indicate that they'd like to speak.
Mr. Laws, would you like to make a public comment?
That's fine. Take your time. If it's helpful for you, I mean, we can't hear you if you're not at the microphone, but if it helps you to sit,
We also do have a portable microphone we could hand to him.
yeah, we
The
can
more,
make that
the more
happen.
steps I take, the PT guys love it. So
There you
Okay, I'm
go.
just saying, we will accommodate.
especially for having that whole team tell me I'd never walk again. It's always great to go, see, you guys keep practicing.
Awesome.
Mark Laws, 54 South First. First comment I wanted to make was, I know back when I was on the planning commission, had concerns about getting close to our water capacity. And I understand they're thinking about building a whole bunch of new houses. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, are we gonna do anything to keep up our capacity to make sure that we're okay? I know that sometimes I notice some brown water, so I don't know what the rest of the community is noticing. The second comment, I did a little bit of checking and researching about our library situation with our visiting Algoma Township folks. And the best I could find out or figure out is there's 3 different school districts there in Algoma. And some of them come to Cedar Springs schools and like to use the Cedar Springs library. And we don't get a nickel for any of those people that come. So it'd be great if we could figure out some kind of way to get some money. I know they offered to give us like $230,000, and I would have just snatched that up and said, yes, let's go. Because I think all they want, I don't know for sure, but I think all they want to do is to be able to say Cedar Springs is now our library because they're something to do with KDL and Rockford or I don't know, whatever. But it just seems like, wow, we need to get something there. Maybe we charge them a library card or something just to get money from them so that we're not getting anything for all their usage of our facilities. Something else that I ran into that I didn't know, that leadership here on city council, the mayor and the vice mayor or mayor pro tem, and the leadership on our planning commission is all in the same 2 houses. And that, to me, when I found that out, I went, oh my goodness, that's not the best looking way to have our leadership teams all being married and all in the same houses. Maybe we should spread that out a little bit. I don't know. I don't think there's any laws that say anything against it, but I don't know that that's the best posture that we want to present to our community. So just a thought, just a comment. The last comment, I'm a alumni from our green and white folks, and terrible situation that we have all experienced there. Something that I've been able to find out because I'm very frustrated with our political leadership and how they've politicized that terrible thing that happened at the student union there. The gentleman, what's that?
Minute. You're at your time. I'm
Okay.
giving you a minute.
The gentleman that did the terrible deed was in terrible mental health. The guns that he purchased were purchased legally, which I can't believe in his mental state. The other thing I found out was that the Ingham County prosecutor a couple of years ago had an opportunity to put this gentleman in jail because he had illegal guns in his car. And so I thought, if only the DA would have done her job, he might be in prison now because he should have got about 5 or 6 years for that. But he ended up not being charged with a felony charge and only got parole for his charge. And so he wasn't a felon, although he did commit a felony. And so I'm frustrated with the way that it's politicized and said that it's a problem because of that inanimate object, when in reality, it's the finger on the trigger that's the problem. And in this case, we could have not had that situation. So I'm hoping that that we look at everything and not just it seems like what we're hearing. So anyway, I appreciate you guys serving on council.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, hearing none. All right, moving on to we don't have any public hearings. And you want, is it Rose or Lisa wants F?
That's me.
Okay. Lisa would like,
Needed discussion.
you would like to pull F off of the consent agenda?
Yep.
And put it on the, action item?
Or discussion. Well, we gotta make an action on it, so yeah, action.
So it would be. It'd be
That would
F.
be F, yeah.
On discussion or?
No, under action, cause we have to
Because,
make,
because
he wants an action done on it.
It's not a rush if you guys feel like something needs to be discussed, but it's fairly straightforward from my perspective.
Okay.
it's just, we're trying to get a person to,
Yeah, so every,
Right, but I
Okay,
have something
we can,
else
we
that I
can,
need
we
to
can
ask
talk about it when we get there.
Yeah.
Anything else coming off the consent agenda? Okay, anything else that are changes to the agenda? Before we. Then I will take a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Let's do a roll call since. Yes. Well, we don't need to do a roll call because there's no money. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. We have an agenda. Moving on to the consent agenda. Council members may request that any or all items be removed from the consent agenda. A motion is then in order to adopt all items not removed from the consent agenda. Requesting the removal of an item from the consent agenda is a prerogative afforded each council member and does not require the support of other council members. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda with a change of letter F being moved over to discussions.
Or
Any discussion?
One thing I'd like to find out about, I know Todd Rezinga has resigned from Downtown Development Authority. Do we have a certificate of appreciation we could present to him?
certainly could.
Okay,
I've thanked him personally. He's done a great job on the DDA,
he has.
but we'd be happy to do that if you'd like.
And I would be happy to, I can probably make cake happen too.
Okay, okay.
That's usually how I try to do that. So, and we are at a dearth. If people know people that are willing to sit on boards, I have multiple things that need them.
And he made some great donations to our city, the bike
Yes.
racks and
Yes,
kinds of stuff.
yes.
Just wanted to make sure I got Mrs. Race's motion. You said you wanted to move 6F to discussion? Or I had
Six
mentioned
F, yeah,
action.
to the, are we going action or are we
Yeah, 'cause
just?
I
I, we put it as action. We
yeah,
could,
'cause he
we can
had it on the
choose
consent, so.
to not
Yeah,
vote
we
on
choose
it.
not.
We could table it, but the request was as a consent agenda item, we would be voting to approve it. So
So moving it to action, is that what you're
action
doing?
was,
My fault.
That was
We can
fine. I
modify
didn't.
your-
make-
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I just want
Uh,
to make sure I had that.
I'd like to make a motion to change the consent agenda from 6F and move it to 7F.
yes,
Got it.
as an action item.
Support.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye. All those opposed say no. Okay, so that's our consent agenda. That's our full discussion. No other questions I should have asked before I started. Action items. A motion to approve ordinance 242, an ordinance to amend section 32,552 pertaining to non-residential design requirements of chapter 32 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs. Second reading.
I'll make a motion to, approve ordinance 242 to amend section 3255 pertaining to the non-residential design requirements of chapter 32 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs.
This is the second reading.
Yes.
Support.
Any discussion?
I think we need to do a roll call for the consent agenda because there is money involved.
I can do a roll. You want me to go back to a roll call?
Yeah, B and D are
Okay.
approving.
I can go back to a roll call. So we had a motion and a second. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Ms. Race.
Yes,
And Mayor Conley votes yes.
thank you.
Madam Mayor, just to be clear for the record, that was to approve of the consent.
Consent agenda, yes. So, and that was it's not a requirement that we do a roll call. It's just we try to do it as a best practice.
You've been best
So-
practicing, so I'm just following.
Yeah.
I
I
appreciate
thought so
it.
too.
And I
You're like,
think
wait, what?
I think I got a little lost in the, is it F as an action
Oh,
item
yeah,
or
I
a
know.
discussion item and how are we dealing with that? So, no, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. So this is a second reading. Any discussion on the motion to approve the ordinance 242? You good?
Mhm.
Okay, then this one I do not think needs a roll call. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries. On to item B, motion to approve ordinance 243, an ordinance to amend section 32616 pertaining to parking application design of chapter 32 zoning of the Court of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs. Second reading, because we spend so much time talking about parking.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Is there
Second.
any discussion? Mr. Manager, anything? You
No,
look like you.
so this is basically codifying what the planning commission's been doing for the last year and a half or so anyways. There's kind of been a general trend in zoning to eliminate parking minimums. And so that's basically what we're codifying here.
Yeah, and it got a little crazy with the like specific zones of how many spaces that you had to have for I think we saw it specifically with the church or a community building that was a church that became problematic and
Yeah, that was a different ordinance. That was a problem, which we fixed.
right.
But no, this really kind of goes back to a couple of the drive-throughs that we've had recently.
Right.
Where we've got the business coming in and saying, well, we only needed 20 in some other city and you're requiring 30. And I think it's fair to say that, for the most part, businesses know exactly how many parking spaces they need.
Yeah.
So this is at least giving the planning commission the authority to reduce below the minimum if they have, appropriate evidence on the record to show that they've made a conscious decision to allow that.
Yes, which I think makes sense. So then moving on to, oh, did we vote? We didn't vote. We have the discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. On to item C, motion to set budget workshop for Thursday, March 30th at 2023 at 6 p.m. Does that work for people?
I'll make that motion.
I'll be on vacation.
Okay,
Sure.
Denied.
Denied.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? So Renee isn't gonna be there. Is there anybody else that can't make it?
As you
You
guys know, we don't talk about the budget just once.
Right,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and
Exactly.
you can zoom in. And we aren't voting on the budget that night. We are listening to the budget that night.
Okay.
So you may not want to zoom in if you're someplace fabulous on a beach in a different time zone.
I will be in a different time.
He
zone.
does not want to.
But you certainly
And I
can.
will hear it again, I'm sure.
You will. But you can zoom in if you read through the budget and you're like,
Okay.
what are you
Questions
doing?
or- All right.
Absolutely, so zoom in. And Any other discussion? March 30th, 6 o'clock. I am assuming that, Mayor Pro Tem may have a little bit of a struggle getting here at 6. So we will make an allowance for that. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. We have a budget workshop. Thank you, Darla. Motion to approve budgeting $7,000 to the NKCE budget for the year 2023-2024.
I'll make the motion to approve the budgeting $7,000 to the NKC for the budget year 23-24.
Is there a second?
I have a question.
Okay.
Regarding the budget amount, is this typically the amount that we usually do?
So we have been budgeting 7,000 to 7,500 for the last several years. Darla, wears many hats. One of the hats that she wears is she assists NKC as both board member and as the treasurer. So I think the NKC was offering to reduce the amount of money that we contribute. But I think this board supports the NKC strongly and wants to not take money away from them.
Right, okay,
So we're not actually losing anything. We're just contributing the same amount we did in the previous year.
right, thank you.
Need a second.
So we need a second?
Second that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I just want Darla to know that she is appreciated for volunteering her time and energy to not only accounting for the money and the books, but going to their meetings. And I certainly appreciate it, as we were so close to just a disaster. And I believe it is doing well at this point. So anyway, thank you, Darla.
My only question is $7,000 enough? Do we need to up it another 1,000?
So and Darla's in a much better position, obviously, to talk about this, but they rejiggered kind of how they charge people to participate in some of their events. As you guys know, we lost 2 of the townships, which
Right.
put them on the ropes for financing. But at least my limited understanding is that they are doing okay at this point.
Okay.
And again, we can throw as much money as you want at something, but there's also a certain amount of equity that we want to see between all the other boards as well.
Yes.
So,
I didn't know if they had to pay someone to do the job that Darla's been doing, if it would be supportive of us to kick in that amount of money.
it's probably something that we'd want that board to discuss if they needed it. And
Okay.
at least just from my basic understanding that, so long as Darla is helping them, they're in an okay position.
Okay, because I thought Darla was stepping down from that.
I haven't heard that. I don't know if we want to discuss that
Okay.
now, but
Well, I didn't,
I think the fear is that there's a possibility that she might. I mean, Darla does a ton for the city. She does a
Right.
ton for all sorts of boards. And at some point she just might need some time for herself.
you get to do that. And if the city needs to support this organization by helping to pay for someone to do the job that Darla has been donating for free, we could certainly take a look at doing that.
Sure. So we could obviously bring it back for a budget adjustment at that point if we need to.
So any other discussion on this? I will do a roll call.
Wait, but if we're gonna pay somebody, why wouldn't we pay Darla? I don't get it.
I don't think, again, I'm not gonna speak for Darla. I don't think it's about pay for Darla. I think it's about time for Darla. I mean,
She's volunteering
but
to do it.
Yeah, and as long as she's, okay.
and
But
so,
if she
I
wants
just
to
feel like
step
if we're gonna
down-
put money in to pay somebody, that we should already be doing that for the person that is volunteering to do it. Like if
So-
that's a possibility, why would
so
we?
part of the discussion was that the NKC offered to give us a discount on the amount of money that we're paying them in
But
light.
that doesn't go to Darla, so what?
Correct. Because
Mhm.
Darla is
that
a
just saves the city.
salaried position for the city.
Okay. I guess it doesn't ring as like fair to me that like
Well, so
she would step down and then someone would fill that position and then now be getting paid.
okay, so I guess my question to you then is, do you want the city to pay one of our own employees additional money to go take care of the finances for a third-party board?
Isn't that what we're talking about doing?
Well,
for somebody
not
else?
exactly. We're not saying we will pay a salary. We're saying if they have to hire that out because they can't find a volunteer that's qualified.
that we could consider
Isn't that
it.
kind of like pushing money around? We're giving it to them and then they're spending it on not Darla, who's doing it right now.
She's volunteering.
She's volunteering. At some point,
Okay.
she might not want
Okay.
to do it anymore and they have to replace her with
Yep,
someone who's
I
qualified.
understand that. I understand that. So I guess if Darla's hearing me, if she has a problem with it, she can come let me know and we can see if we
If
can.
it would make
No, I guess
council
it
feel
doesn't
better
work.
about it, I will sit down and speak with Ms. Falcon sometime next week and discuss this in greater detail.
It's fine. I just know
I
that
love
there
that.
was some discussion that Darla might be stepping down, that she's just volunteers for so much.
Because some of the reason why she might be volunteering is because they don't have enough money.
Right, which we're saying that we can
Right.
pitch in for somebody else, but not
No, I'm
Darla.
not saying, I'm
I'm-
agreeing with you.
Like,
And I'm
General
not-
we.
I'm
like
not
the
saying that
consensus is right.
that's the deal breaker. I'm just saying, do they need an extra $1,000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which just made, that question just made me think about why we just wouldn't do that now and picture a little bit of. or
And he's
extra.
saying he would like the board to tell us. that
Yeah,
he would like
and that,
more
yep,
money.
and that is, I would agree with that.
And I'm fine with that. So the motion on the table is for $7,000. Any other discussion? I'm
Mm-mm.
gonna do a roll call. Ms. Ashton.
Yes.
Ms. Hamel.
Yes.
Ms. Powell.
Yes,
Ms. Race.
Yes.
And Mayor Conley votes yes. I would just say, Mr. Manager and, Ms. Falcon, in the event that this is a piece of the conversation with them, please let them know that our board is possibly amenable to providing additional funding to help support them if they're struggling.
Thank you.
So I know that I've had a lot of people in the community reach out to me that it's important that we keep that organization afloat, and we
Mhm.
will, even if we put in more than other groups do, I understand. We do that with lots of things. So, all right, moving on to item E, a motion to approve the Heart of Cedar Springs Farmers Market. I'm really excited about this.
Yep, so we had a individual in the community reach out with the idea of having a farmer's market in Morley Park. Unfortunately, due to some conflict of interest with the youth football league and other stuff that they have going on down there, just didn't make sense. So as you guys-
Conflict of scheduling, really, I mean,
Yes.
not so much of interest.
I apologize. Working with her, we determined that maybe this would work out in the Heart of Cedar Springs, the way that the brewery's farmer's market used to. Now, the brewery held their farmer's market on Thursdays, and they did it for a shorter period of time of what's being proposed here. Some minor, concerns I do still have is that they want to hold their farmer's market through, I believe, October. As you guys know, we have Red Flannel Festival in October, and this farmer's market is proposed for Saturdays. So at the very minimum, we should say you can't do it that day.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a fairly well thought out plan. I think they're meeting all the minimum requirements at this point. And we might have someone in the audience for maybe.
Would like to speak to it? Do we have anybody?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear
Fine, I
me?
apologize.
No, it's okay.
First, let me get a motion. Do I have a motion to approve the Heart of Cedar Springs Farmers Market?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so discussion.
If you could identify yourself and then talk, please.
Sure. My name is Kimberly Gautama, and I submitted the application for the farmer's market. My husband and I live in Cedar Springs, and we're trying to find a place to sell our flowers. And Cedar didn't have a farmer's market, so we kind of checked on Facebook with Cedar people that live in Cedar Springs and discovered there was a high interest since the brewery's not doing it anymore. And so we submitted the application, and city manager has been fantastic, walking us through this and trying to piece this together. So if you have any questions at all, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Are you comfortable with extending into October, but not on Red Flannel Day?
Yes, I've kind of let the vendors that have shown interest know that. I think because we could know ahead of time, we can plan around that. So, but October is a good month for farmers, you know, to have
Absolutely.
product out when we can. So we'll take what we can get.
Is there, what if there's like a library activity or anything? Can we work around with that or
Yeah,
sometimes there's?
if we can just be aware of that,
Uh-huh.
we'll definitely, we're willing to work with, you know, the city, whatever we can do.
Excellent. What will be your booth fees or? Haven't you
We're
can,
not charging any fees unless there are fees that the city requires. There's a fee, some odd dollars for the insurance,
Mhm.
which I would ask everyone to chip in on. Other than that, I'm not aware of any fees that the city is requiring.
It doesn't require fees. We just require that they have insurance.
Insurance, yeah, in the past, we
Yeah.
did charge.
We've been asked to try and keep fees down because, you know, so there's really no reason to charge any fees other than, you know, to help cover the cost of the insurance.
yes. That sounds good.
Sounds fabulous.
Great.
Any other questions from the board? Any discussion?
I
Hey,
had just one more question on the application. I did have that starting in June. And due to some people showing interest in starting earlier, would that be a problem, starting the first week in May? That first Saturday, the 6th?
Yeah, so the only event that we know we're gonna have is, I think in July, like the first, I think it's the 8th. It's a gravel bike race, which is gonna be very large, I think, this year. And I think I also told Mr. Letma in an email about it. So other than that July 8th date, I don't see any problem with starting early if that's what she wants to do.
yeah, I was gonna
Okay.
say that there used to be an egg hunt in like Easter, but
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's
it's
being done in Morley
before.
Park.
yeah,
Okay.
Before then.
That's
Yeah.
April 1st.
as I say, it's Easter. So
So are you saying they shouldn't have the market on that day? It seems like a great day to be selling stuff.
So we have vendors who will take over the Hardesty Springs Park on that
Oh,
day.
the whole day.
And in years past, I don't know how many bike racers we've had in years past, but
Mhm.
we're expecting 300 to 400 bikers this year.
Okay.
Bikers, bicyclists this year.
There's a difference.
Mhm.
yes, there's a difference.
Yes.
But so it just takes up a lot of space.
Yeah, okay.
So
Great, I love it.
I think it's wonderful. Does anyone see any conflict with extending it out to beginning of May?
Oh,
I don't.
Yeah, no, I would just say amend your
Okay.
application with the manager.
Okay, thank you so much.
yes.
And so I will take a roll call on this.
Okay.
Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes, and good luck.
Thank you.
Ms. Race.
Yes.
And Mayor Conley votes yes, and I may be down there with some iris bulbs or something to sell.
Yeah.
You got,
I
okay.
do. My husband currently has, I think, 8 flats of vegetables started.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
I'm down.
I miss you. Miss you. All right. Item F moved from the consent agenda, motion to approve the special events coordinator job description. Mr. Manager?
So prior to hiring any person to serve at City Hall, I like to have a job description, kind of explaining what their job is going to be. And so I believe I presented you guys with an assistant to the city manager job description a month or two back, which you approved. And what this is being proposed as is, if you guys don't know, the summer concerts in the park at the amphitheater, the city manager has been the one out there putting out the pedestrian signs and getting the check to the band, although Ms. Powell's helped with that a lot, thank you. Picking up garbage in the park, opening up the amphitheater, and this is all being done after 5:30, which is when my workday is supposed to end.
Siri.
So the hope was that we would be able to hire maybe a high school student or maybe a college student home from college for the summer to do some of these tasks, pay them $15 an hour and allow the city manager to go do something else. So that's kind of what the goal is, but I want to have a job description approved by the city council before we hired somebody to do that.
Wouldn't that be a job for a assistant?
So an assistant to the city manager is more of a professional level job where they're gonna be expected to do things similar to what I'm doing, which is
Mhm.
budgeting
Right.
and relations.
But also take other stuff off your plate, correct?
Sure, obviously. But what I'm talking about here is more like
Like a summer DPW
yeah,
person.
Yeah.
summer
yeah.
DPW parks assistant type.
Okay,
And as we've talked about in the past, also about the possibility of expanding out some of our parks, like creating like a Parks and Rec kind of thing, depending on how the NKCE handles what they're doing. And as there's more events expanding out beyond what the library does, because they've been moving into this like adult yoga and movement and so on, that we might actually get to a place where we have a person who just schedules all of the park stuff. And not just the Heart, but at Morley Park, because we have now 2 pavilions that you can rent.
Well, the pavilion at Morley and the amphitheater. But,
So,
I mean, a lot of the problem of the city is that we just don't have the staffing to run some of the things we'd like to do.
right, right.
And so I spoke with Ms. Howe this morning, about how if we had this person on staff during the summer, that they could help volunteer at library events.
Mhm.
Which, you know, we'd be paying them, but it would help
Right.
smooth out some of those events.
Right,
The cakewalk that we held at one of the amphitheater,
the
concerts.
concerts.
I mean, that was a well-received event and, just, it takes a lot of my time.
okay. But I just don't want, I just don't want you not to stop looking for an assistant because
Yes.
that's really
Yes,
important.
it is. I
So-
would advocate we should have an assistant and this
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
Oh, it's funny you should say that. I attended the Michigan Municipal Executives Winter Conference at the beginning of this month. Which is one of the reasons that we pushed the meeting to today instead of last week.
Mhm.
And, if you guys don't know, I am the vice chair for the early, executive outreach committee. Whose job it is to bring, young people into the fold of executive management. And I ran into a couple of the younger students who've been coming to these events, and I was letting them know the city might be hiring. Plus, the West Michigan Managers Association group is gonna be having their next meeting at GVSU next month in March. So it's my hope and desire to possibly post that job then.
Okay,
But
good.
we are also currently looking for, I think, DPW people. So it's kind of, I don't want to overwhelm us with job applications.
Mhm.
That's kind of why I waited. But yes.
And
looking-
the assistant manager should be like a year-round position,
Correct, so,
where this position would be
Summer, yeah.
May to
Right.
May to October.
my hope is that with the assistant, we would look at probably a 2-year, kind of fund it on that perspective, maybe not infinity into the future, but at least a 2-year commitment.
Mhm.
That's about how long it takes for somebody to really get caught up to speed.
Right.
And hopefully at some point become their own manager somewhere else.
Molly, maybe?
Yes,
I believe that might be Ms. Nixon.
yes, well taken. I will continue to look for an assistant to the city manager.
Okay, just wanting to make sure.
I
Get
do
your
think
feelers
though,
out.
as we expand our parks and as we've been applying for grants to get more equipment and more things in our parks. And Madam Clerk, please note that Mayor Pro Tem is here at 7:47. You okay? Yes. That we are gonna need people to support this. If we wanna be able to provide, somebody's gotta go unlock the bathrooms and somebody's gotta make sure, I mean, at the moment, it's kind of getting split up between the manager and DPW and,
So
people
at
in the
least this
library
will
and-
relieve him a little bit.
Yeah. And some of our DPW people and the fire department has been doing some of this at the concerts, cause I
Just,
chat with
yeah,
them.
there's all sorts of hands in this, so.
So yeah, it would be nice to have an actual person, he's called me and said, can you drop a check off? to
Well, and I would,
Ms.
I would have been there,
Howell?"
but that's my work night, so
I-
that late work night, so
I got you. I just saying, it would be, we should pay someone to do
gotta
this.
change the day.
So it's a
Yeah.
totally appropriate
No,
thing.
it is, yeah, but I just wanted to get that question answered and
Did we get it answered?
I got it answered.
Yes.
All right.
It's great, thank you.
Awesome. So with that, I will take a roll call. I should say, any other discussion or questions?
Ms.
No,
Conley,
we haven't made a motion.
Oh, I thought we made the motion.
No,
I don't have
Okay, then I need a motion for item F. A motion to approve the special events coordinator job description.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I do wanna just make a comment. I know that there's interns and externs and whatever they're called, event coordinators. I mean, there's people that go to school for that stuff too, so just throwing it out there to maybe look at something like that.
In this race, the appropriate thing under Robert's rules is to second. the
Second the motion
I'll
and then
second
make
and
the
then,
discussion.
okay.
I'm waiting for the second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so then the discussion question would be, could it be someone with an events coordinator or a hospitality intern?
Yeah, I mean,
Check with
just
the colleges.
think of just
Yep.
that idea too.
So the expectation isn't super high on this. It's gonna be somebody who's local.
Yeah.
And so I'm not gonna hold my breath and wait for somebody who's going to be, a master of,
No, no,
coordination or something.
right.
It's something that could be handled by a mature high school student
Sure.
or somebody home from college.
Okay.
But certainly if somebody were interested in that, we'd be more than happy to have them on the team.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it certainly can be a resume builder for somebody who is in that field.
Sure.
But it could also be somebody who just would like to get paid, a little bit of money for a few hours a week to make sure keys get picked up and dropped off and checks get handled and so on. So any other discussion?
Have we contacted that guy from the school that came here and told us that he was the liaison between the students and the activities of the city and how he could help us out with different things?
He's certainly somebody I would contact when
Okay.
hiring for this position.
Yeah,
But I've got a ton of ideas of things I'd like to do and just
Uh-huh.
not the time to do it.
okay.
So, yeah, certainly something we'll be in touch with him if
Mhm.
ways we could work with each other on stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the
okay.
library might have someone too, and
We can spread the word.
yeah.
on that.
So other discussion. All right, I'll do a roll call. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes,
Ms. Race.
Yes.
Mayor Conley votes yes. Moving on to discussion items, a discussion on proposed multifamily project development at 14300 White Creek Avenue.
So we do have a few people in the audience that can speak on this. But for my part, we talked about this, can't remember, a little while ago.
At least a year?
No, it's been an ongoing conversation. Some things have changed, which I'll let them detail for you. This is one of those pivotal things for the community about, how and whether we want to move forward on, a big development like this. There's certainly things that this development can offer the city. There'll be some good housing, reasonably priced housing. It'll put to good use some of the land that's otherwise fairly inaccessible. Most importantly, I think for this board is the extensions of the water and or sewer. But obviously these things cost money. And the project development is going to be expensive. And at some point will contribute a significant amount of property taxes to the community. But what's at least being proposed is that, similar to other TIF districts, that the developer be paid back for certain utility extensions prior to that money coming into the city's coffers. So
And just to be clear, this is in the 425 district with Solon.
it is.
And just to be clear, Solon has not changed their position and not being willing to negotiate on any of the pass-through on the taxes, correct?
Correct. It's a bit of an odd situation from my perspective, but you are absolutely correct that
It just-
Solon Township seems to have taken the position that they don't want to give up any of their tax money. And instead they prefer that the city pay for these things entirely.
So just as cause for us, that is a piece of it. If we are going to be reducing the amount of taxes that we would collect, but we still have to pass it through to Solon, at some point, that's us writing a check.
So would the board like to hear from the developers?
Yes.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Doug Gulker with Fusion Properties. So we have been working on this project for about a year and a half, and we've been through site plan approval. And one of the things we do once we are ready to start final engineering is we hire a wetland consultant, have him come look at the site to make sure we don't have any wetland issues. The state has recently changed their stance on wetlands. Previously, if it was actively farmed, it was not considered a wetland. Now the state is saying if it could become a wetland, if farming stopped, it's considered a wetland. So I think in your packet, it shows how much land was gobbled up by wetlands. So obviously we had to work around them. So we've come up with an alternative plan. It's our 3-story product. It takes up less footprint, similar materials, similar quality, similar rents, but it is a different style. So we achieved the same or similar number of units. I think we ended up with 8 more because the buildings hold 24 units. Obviously, we have to go back to site plan approval to get that submitted, but there's a significant amount of engineering cost that goes with that. So we felt it would be better off to resolve this TIF and how do we recapture some of those costs? So every municipality has different tools. And so what we're proposing is kind of a 2-part where it's TIF, capture a portion, and then also as people connect to this extended utility, that can also pay us back. So it can get the city tax dollar sooner. And I brought along my attorney to explain all the numbers, but we really tried to come up with a plan that gets you tax dollars sooner, yet helps this project happen, because we quite honestly can't do it if we can't bring those utilities to the site. So. Do you want to explain that?
Hi, Jared Belka with Warner Norcross. Good to see everybody again. And yeah, it has been a while. So yeah, I mean, Doug kind of, gave a good intro to this. We initially came with the concept of utilizing brownfield TIF to offset the cost of installing the infrastructure. We went back to the township and tried to work with them. And I would just say their view was under the 425 agreement, it was the city's responsibility. So, we understand we're kind of caught in the middle. So we're trying to come up with a solution that we can all move forward with. And by doing so, Doug's group is offering to pay the upfront cost of the infrastructure, not asking the city to front the cost of that. But he needs to find a way to offset that, in order to deliver the product. So, we've come up with initially the brownfield as a tool, understanding there was some concern about the length of that reimbursement. We did talk about trying to tier, a partial pass through to allow for some immediate revenue to the city, which we are still very open to do so. But that's still, obviously, if you do that, it lengthens the reimbursement period. So, we were tasked with, is there anything else we might be able to do to kind of sweeten the pot, so to speak? So, this is where the concept of this payback agreement, which Doug's utilized in other municipalities, essentially tap fees, right? So the developer, Doug's group, will front the cost for the entire improvement. We would propose to utilize the brownfield to help reimburse that. Current projections, what you have in your packet shows a period of about 10 years. But in conjunction with that, we would propose to utilize this payback agreement, whereas a party seeking to tap into that would pay a tap fee. And those fees could be used to reimburse the developer in addition with this brownfield TIF. So the end goal would be the current proposal of 10 years could theoretically go down to 4 or 5, whatever it may be. So we would be utilizing a 2-pronged approach to try and shorten that reimbursement period to put this project on it would be on the full tax rolls, but there would be no longer a TIF applicable. And the goal is a long-term gain in bringing housing to the area. So that is our proposal, would be to utilize those 2 tools. We are open to sitting down. What we're essentially requesting here is that we get a work session and talk about those pass-throughs, whatever it may be needed in order to satisfy the 425 agreement with Solon Township. We're not asking the city to come out of pocket for that. We want to be respectful to that, and we can come up with a solution. But our ask would be that you consider utilizing the payback, along with the brownfield TIF to offset the infrastructure cost. And just one little tidbit, I don't know, this is a report that came out last week, from Housing Next about the housing needs.
Oh,
There's nodding on
No
that.
question, yeah.
And again, this is, just to kind of underscore the importance of this, they're projecting a shortfall in Kent County alone. Grand Rapids is like 15,000, Kent County is another 20,000.
Yeah, there's no question that there's a need for housing.
In the price points that Doug is proposing here fall within that kind of missing middle component. We just looked at the AMI ranges and there's 70 to 100% AMI. So, it targets the group, that, that is essentially left out at this point. So we're hoping that you see this as a positive. It is within the 425 area, which
Yeah.
I know was done in 1999, contemplating future development. So we believe we've got a great project in the right area. We just need a partnership with you in order to make this work. So happy to answer any specifics. I've got numbers we can dig in here. But essentially what we'd like to ask is that you consider a work session where we can sit down, talk about what passed through, but support the use of this brownfield with a payback agreement. And hopefully shorten that period. And we can get this thing done.
Mr. Manager?
I mean, it's, like I said, it's a, it's a very large project. It's going to significantly alter this community forever. Ultimately, it's, I think, a good thing. The question is, philosophically, is this something we want to kind of, bite our lips and do? Because we just had, 120 homes being put in on the north end of town, and they're paying for utilities offsite, themselves. They're not
Right.
asking for public assistance. But, the looping of the water from the water tower along Solon Street, I think is beyond important. I think it's almost emergent.
Yes. Now the sewer, not so much, but the water, yes.
I mean, if you want my unfiltered opinion, I agree. I think the sewer is less important. And of course, there's gonna be an intervening property owner who's also gonna benefit from it, which is maybe where we get this component of, payback for tap-in fees, et cetera, et cetera. But this is really not an appropriate venue and time for going through everything that
Yeah.
Mr. Balka has in his head.
In a nutshell, if to even pursue this with what I'm going to ask is maybe a committee of people that volunteer to go have this conversation. But my first question is there a way, providing the pass-through that's going to be required from Solon, because they're not willing to take any haircut on this, that we can have this where it doesn't actually cost the city money?
I guess depends on what you mean by cost the city money.
Because we have to pay all of our people to show up. I mean, we have to pay our fire department, we have to pay our water treatment plant, we have to pay all of those things. And then we also have to pay the taxes to Solon.
So before Mr. Balka tries to answer, sorry.
You're
Um,
good. Hey, you got the stage.
So, the city's growing. We're kind of, it's a little problematic because we're kind of on the cusp of a few things already. So it's,
Like needing another well and
yes. Well, but I'm saying
second water tower.
it
and-
isn't their fault.
Right,
But the water capacity and the water tower and the library, only
And
about 1,000
second voting,
and a full-time fire person, all these things. So we're gonna have costs kind of regardless of whether they come in or not.
Mhm.
So, that's part of the positive is eventually they're gonna be paying full taxes, which will eventually help pay for all this.
Yes.
But they are kind of accelerating some of the needs of these things. And what they're asking for is for the city to float the cost for a couple of years. And really what we're talking about is how many years?
and it's again, that pass through. If we have to then take the taxes that we do collect and give them to Solon Township.
Yeah. So I think at very minimum, and this is why a workshop session is probably appropriate. If we owe Solon $3,000 a year under the 425, we should at minimum have $3,000 passing through. But
Right.
the more pass through, the more years it's
More
gonna take
years.
to pay it off. Mr. Belka, I'm sorry, you've been waiting patiently.
No, I appreciate that. I just,
I mean, do you understand? I'm not trying to negate what you all are trying to do, but I
No, no.
have to,
fully understood, and a couple of those points, just, there are a couple things, and I know they've come up in prior discussions, but in terms of the single family home, right, that's a different model. I mean, and just in regards to price points, I went on their website. I mean, they're selling for, they start at 264,000 all the way up to 360 some thousand. So it's a different model. They recoup their cost for infrastructure in a different approach. So
And I can assure you, they're not selling for 260.
yeah, I was gonna say, I know some,
300 minimum.
yeah, I was gonna say, I know several people and.
I was
no one's-
shortchanged myself, so.
Yeah, no one's gotten
But
in on
you were.
300,000.
But nonetheless, the point is, it's a different model, and if that was, if they were selling condos, it might be a
Right.
different story.
This will be for people who don't have that kind of money up front.
Correct. And then the pass through, I mean, I just, that's something we're certainly willing to consider. The hope is that obviously this spurs additional development, those tap fees further offset that, and it gets shortened down, right? That's the whole goal here. So just a rough number, looking at our current projections, the amount that would be owed under the 425 to Solana Township, it's about $17,000. So if you look at a 20% pass through, just on the city's millage alone, that's like $21,000. So there's some flexibility in there. There's some administrative capture that the authority can capture. So again, we are fully willing to do that. And then just the final point, totally understand growing pains, right? That's why they call them growing pains, right? And it becomes a chicken and egg, right? Do we service all this infrastructure in hopes of future development? Or do we hold our breath, be patient, let the development happen? And that obviously raises the boat. So that's what we're proposing, obviously it's a partnership. Everybody's got to stick their neck out a little bit. And Doug can talk about his company's success and history of developing these. So we understand growing pains are
Yeah,
tough.
and
but-
we're in this unusual position that we are the only place, as you know, which is why you want a 425 in, that has municipal water that tests non-detect for PFAS. So like which means we're dropping another well, which means we're putting in another water tower, which means. So
Long-term, just the city operating millage alone, when this is reimbursed, I think it was like $220,000. So, and that's not including the other separate city millages. So yes, the goal here is to raise the tide, obviously. So.
yes,
Who is paying the tap fees?
So it would be anyone building on that. So the way this works is you outline obviously where the new main would be extended. And those properties, abutting that, if they want to construct something, they would need to pay a tap fee to tap into that water main.
That would be neither.
it'd be
you
somebody
nor I.
new.
Like our side or your side, it would be a third.
So,
The-
Mr. Belka, I
Go ahead.
apologize. I don't think Ms. Hamel was here during the last time we discussed this.
Yeah,
So basically, they're extending water mains and sewer mains. And so where there's no mains right now. So if those adjoining property owners want to tap into those water mains, they would have to pay a certain amount of money back to the developer, which would then.
Would cover our bit. of it.
Correct.
and what they're saying is they would pass that through directly to us.
And it would actually, the payment would be to you, the city, and via payback agreement, it would be a pass through to the developer because they're the ones that incurred that cost up front. So there's and you can read through it in further detail. There's a draft of a payback agreement.
Like
Um,
you're giving it back to us to give back to you?
Well, the city has the authority to implement a payback system. So
The water main belongs to the city.
Right.
So
Okay,
they're
so
tapping
they're
in.
paying the tap fee to us.
the city,
then
and
we're
then via
part of that
payback
agreement. Okay.
agreement. Yep.
I was thinking that you were getting it and then giving it to us and then
Yeah.
we have that back. Okay.
What they're saying is because
I got
that
it.
water loop is closed.
Yep, no, I got
It
it.
isn't currently closed. There's an opportunity for other
Correct.
businesses to tap on
Yep.
and charge. Yes.
So forgive me, I'm trying, but I think I've missed something. So let's say just for the sake of numbers, it cost $1,000. I know that's a ridiculous number, but
We wish, we wouldn't
yeah,
be.
we
here.
wish, that would be amazing. let's say it costs $1,000 to do this and so you guys front that $1,000 through tax abatements. Eventually, you would get paid back that $1,000. And then if property owners in the future hooked into that water main, they would then pay the city that fee to
So you-
offset.
You want to take it?
I'm so sorry.
No. So you're close, and I'll clarify a couple points there. So what we're proposing is tax increment financing, right? So we're, there's a current base value, which quite honestly, I think it's only like $20,000 on this particular parcel.
This is
So-
farmland.
Yep. So, Doug's group is gonna come in and make a significant multi-million-dollar investment, right? We're projecting an increase in the taxable value once it's completed of about $7 million, right? So the brownfield would capture a portion of that incremental increase in property taxes. So i.e. Doug's group paying the property taxes, you, the brownfield authority, capturing that and reimbursing them a portion of that. In conjunction with that, we are also proposing to use a payback agreement with the city that would say if an adjoining property owner, which could maybe be Doug's group, maybe, they go do a phase 2. They would pay the city a tap fee, and then via this payback agreement, the city would take those proceeds and reimburse the developer. So if you use just the TIF reimbursement approach, right now it's projecting about a 10-year reimbursement period. So with that payback agreement, that would chip away as additional development and it would shorten that reimbursement period.
Then we have this piece that it's 425. And Solon is not willing to take any,
Sure, they would like to capture all of their.
they would like all of their taxes on
Sure.
the 425.
And just one more piece that Mr. Bell he knows, but he didn't say. So all these properties that might develop by tapping in, they are not going to be part of the TIF. So the full property taxes that they would pay would come to the,
Yeah.
And do we get to charge those tapping fees forever or in perpetuity or just
Well, when they-
we are paid back for them?
only until they're paid back.
It'd be when they hook on.
Only till we're paid back, but if it's still in
still tap.
place, you, the city, retain those tap fees.
Which we
Yeah, that's
charge
what I'm saying,
now.
like, couldn't we just keep the tap fees in place so that?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that the property's developed,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, yeah.
at some point, you're
Yeah.
gonna run out of dirt, but
Mhm.
yes, to your point, yes, that would then be going straight to the city, which could be used for the DPW.
And the Solon stuff.
Yeah, which we charge now.
So if I understand correctly, developer fronts the money
Mhm.
with the plan that through the TIF, we could pay it off in X amount of years.
Mhm.
Any person, any property owner who tapped into that would pay a fee, which would go to the developer and shorten our length of payback.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
now I'm,
It's
thank
like
you.
extra.
Okay, yeah.
payments on principal fees.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the dollars back to the developer don't really change.
Okay.
Actually, under the plan, they would actually probably shrink because there's interest proposed for offset some of the carry costs, which it's below current market, but in any event, it doesn't change the principal amount that the developer gets. It's just the period of time. So what we were trying to achieve with that is obviously getting the property, full tax rolls flowing to all the taxing jurisdictions as soon as possible.
Cause we have to have tax money to pay the fire department to show up and to pay DPW and to
Um,
pay the water treatment plant and to pay Solon their pass through on the taxes.
Right, and, Solon is how many years? I cannot recall.
Is it 10
for what?
on the 425?
Thought it was forever.
Yeah.
So I'd have to look at it, but it's basically they have the right to renew it forever.
Oh,
That's
forever.
fascinating.
So we could go into that in greater detail, but the question, I guess, at this point is council at least interested in going into a workshop to go into some of the greater detail? Cause it's
Yeah, we need to do
visually having maps and all sorts of things.
sure.
Also-
Now, here's my next question. Do you want to workshop with the full council that we would do in full open session, or do you want me to get a committee of 3?
My
Full council?
I guess what I propose is maybe we go to the fire station and kind of do it similar to the strategic
Yeah.
planning session.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Okay.
I just don't have a date yet because we've got budget meetings. The city manager might be out of town on
I
vacation.
was gonna say, is it also the kind of thing we should include the planning commission or the
Yes.
DDA or any of those?
Open to the public as a public meeting.
Right,
The planning commission, really, they're looking at site plans
right.
and, they pass site plan easily.
Like, they're not
Right.
doing the funding part.
They're not doing the funding.
No, they're the like, but they have to, although you're not gonna wanna re-engineer until you know that for sure we would be
Which is-
willing,
Part of why I wanted to do this first.
Right.
right?
They live here and they want to know what's going on.
Well, anybody can attend. The question
Right.
was, should they be like at the table as part of but they will do their own, cause they have to submit new site plans, cause they're going to re-engineer
Right.
to make it fit within the new space, cause the planning commission already approved their initial one, but
Previous plan.
and by the way, I'm told it was fabulous. They see lots and lots of site plans and that it was well done, and so I trust, I don't trust that will be difficult for you, but I also understand they would not want to spend the money on engineering if it's not a thing that we financially can feel like we can make happen.
Sure. And at some point, just, and I can only go by someone's current position because who knows what happens in 5 years. So their current position is that they would like to keep those tax dollars. So we would have to see how we would be able to financially support a development
Right,
with city
that's
services
The issue.
if there is no tax money at all.
But we're
Yeah.
good
But-
at tax money.
It's their
There will be.
portion, yeah, it's,
Some tax money.
yes.
That's where we said we could entertain the concept of that pass through, trying to get some immediate money to cover that.
But then extend it out over time.
That's what the
That's the-
workshop is for, to figure out what the
Yeah.
actual numbers are.
Well, I think I think that's absolutely appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll get with you all and try to figure out a date.
So let me work with the developer, find a date, and then
Great.
we'll do it.
All right.
And just thanks to the city manager, he tasked us and pressed us pretty hard on this, so we sharpened the pencils and went back to the drawing board, so.
Yeah,
Appreciate
and
it.
again, it's not our job as council is to collect taxes to provide services for our community. And we can't provide services to pay people to provide those services if we don't collect taxes. So that's just, that's how it works.
And that's the proverbial chicken and egg with this particular one, right? So we're trying to strike that happy balance and meet in the middle on this, and we're truly asking for a partnership in this to move it forward. So we appreciate your consideration.
So Madam Mayor, I got in trouble last time for asking for a recess without a vote. But the people in the audience should know that we have a policy of allowing people to leave after they're
Yes.
done. So if you'd like to maybe pause for a few seconds.
Yes, you are welcome to leave. It is a public meeting. You're welcome to come in at any time. You're welcome to leave at any time.
I appreciate you coming and
Thank you.
being in contact.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And wouldn't you know, there is an item C that will be discussing that very issue here shortly.
Yes. And I really appreciate the clerk paying attention to those specifics of Robert's rules and making sure we stay on track for that.
One of
That
those
is-
things that's harmless, but best practice.
We should do best practices, and I really appreciate that she caught that for us. So that was wonderful.
Rules are rules, Mike.
Well, and it's appropriate so that you can't just dismiss without anybody saying I didn't know we were recessed.
That's the point. It's like.
And I think we've gabbed long enough to allow people to exit without actually recessing.
Get it later.
All right, so item B, discussion regarding city council agenda format.
Yeah, so I took a look to see if we had a copy of bylaws or something that dictated how we have our agenda set up. And I don't think we do, so
Mhm.
I thought it might be appropriate just to discuss this briefly. See if there's ways we can maybe make it a little bit more efficient, and some of the things I've heard various council members discuss in the past. So I've got a couple notes here and I don't know how you want to do that. If you want me to just kind of go through them briefly or if you want to
Sure.
talk amongst yourselves. Okay.
My only question would be is maybe we should flip discussion and action.
So, just point on that is planning commission kind of went through a similar discussion not too long ago. And what they've asked me to do now is we have public hearings, right?
Mhm.
And then if there's a site plan approval attached to that, we do it immediately at the same time. So that there's not public hearing and then a period and then, that. And Madam Clerk, you can help me with this, but do we do, site plan reviews before other items now? So we moved the action items of approving site plans to first up and then discussion items second on the planning commission meeting. Because obviously if we have members of the public who would come, want to watch and, get
Yeah.
everything done, we want to send them out the door quicker than not.
Right.
So that's part of the reason that the planning commission did that. So I don't know what your thoughts are on why we might want to do the discussion first versus action.
Well, we have this, policy of hearing things twice. And so especially if there's things that the community is coming to talk about, a bike race or a whatever, that putting those up front so that they can have that discussion and then they can leave before especially, and then if the action is more perfunctory because we've already discussed it at the previous meeting. That would be I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm just saying that's
And that's part
a
of,
piece of what,
and I'm not sure we'll resolve any of these issues today, but I wanted to at least bring it to you guys.
I don't think the way we're doing it is bad.
So a major portion of, this is about public comments. The easy one, I guess, would be that you guys have 4 minutes listed as, the amount of time to address their concerns. A lot of communities do 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I just recently learned that Algoma does too.
So I didn't know if you guys wanted to consider changing that
I
portion.
appreciate the 4 minutes. I like to have our people have time. I even generally try to be generous with that.
Another thing is that we have, basically 2 paragraphs that we read at every single meeting detailing what the policy is. I looked at a number of other, communities, agendas. They don't have that. Most of them might have 1 sentence at most. So I didn't know if you guys want to consider shortening that up. Another issue is a line in here about concerns brought before the council during public comment will be referred to the city manager, and then if the manager can't resolve it to the mayor, and then if the mayor can't resolve it to the council. I mean, that's kind of how things work, right? I don't know if we need to say that because it kind of makes, and this is again my opinion, makes it look like the city manager can't resolve it.
I guess we could put it in the consent agenda as a piece or a statement at the top that we don't necessarily read or.
I don't really even know what the point of that is.
Well, but it's also now getting into the final part, which is what is the council's policy? Because the council very explicitly states policy is to hear public comment, not to act on public comment.
Right, and that's the piece that's been a challenge in the past is there's an expectation from a lot of community, and I think maybe we're getting them conditioned so that it doesn't feel so much that way. Especially now that so many meetings have been on Zoom and people can come see them, but there was an expectation that if I come and I have a question that you'll answer me. And why don't you answer me? And so we put this statement at the top saying, we don't answer you. So that's to kind of clarify that piece of it. But if you don't think that that's necessary.
No, I think that part is necessary and I'd like to actually change that and pull out act and put in instead respond, question or react. So we're not to respond, question or react to the public comment at this time.
I'm your employee.
Make it crystal clear that we are listening. It's our time to listen and then they can move on. And if we have any comments later, we can.
I mean, obviously, I want to resolve issues. And you're right. Sometimes they think, well, if I come to the council will do it for me. When in reality, 4 days a week, 40 hours a week, I'm at City Hall. If they contact me there, it would have been resolved a month previous. But, it's also a question of, is council only wanting to hear public comment? Because there's been a lot of debate. There's been a lot of back and forth. And, do we want to keep that in there if that's not how we're going to behave?
Right.
And people often have questions of people that come for public comment.
I feel like we need to treat them as rhetorical questions.
You all
We
have
can
questions.
discuss it later
Oh, yeah.
on,
but we
during our
shouldn't be
discussion
asking
time.
que- That's why I
Mhm.
said to put, we're not gonna respond, we're not gonna ask questions, and we're not gonna react. It's you talk for 4 minutes. And I think it needs to be a hard 4 minutes, if we agree on 4 minutes.
So I
'Cause
think
then
that-
it's like,
I don't
it's
cut,
fluid.
I don't cut the library director off at 4 minutes.
So Robert's rules does give the
The chair,
executive the authority to extend if wanted, if needed.
Okay,
But, I mean, again, we're going to a question of policy should that be liberally granted? Or is that something that really should only be granted in, certain circumstances?
yeah, I think for general public comment, it should be 4 minutes.
Yes.
'Cause then you get into, like, we're allowing one person to talk for longer, but not another person. And does that person align with what we're debating or what they think that we think? Like, it just.
There should
we're
be no
supposed to
debate.
Be like
is what there should
transparent,
be.
I'm-
is, like the whole point, so.
it's not about debate. I mean, the library director isn't debating anything with
Yeah,
us
so
when
the
I give her
debate- so
extra
that is
time.
Fine, I wouldn't argue that you can't
No.
give her extra time because she works so closely with the city.
Sure.
That would make sense. But somebody just coming up and saying like, hey, like, I don't know, the one public comment we had.
Is
I don't
that,
remember his name. But
Mr.
just
Loft.
he asked like a couple of questions and we listened, nobody responded to the questions, but it's something to think about. And thank you very much.
Mhm.
But that should be a strict 4 minutes, not over, because the next person, how are you gonna justify that he got only 4 minutes and the other person got 4.5? I don't think that's fair. And it's very subjective. And that's how it's gonna be looked at. Is why'd you give them more time than somebody else?
and maybe we should, if the library director's gonna come every meeting, maybe we should
No,
put
why can't we
her,
put her on our agenda?
yeah, maybe we should put her on the agenda as a librarian comment. I mean, she's
So
part of the city.
not part of the city. She's not a staff person who reports to me.
Right, true.
That's why she's not in my director's report.
Mhm.
And besides, that's at the end of the meeting. Unfortunately, these folks are forced to be here. I can't force her to be here.
We are at least in theory
Okay, then,
paying
I mean,
them
we
to
could
be
make
here.
Move it, like.
So-
Because it's not really a public comment. That's not really
we-
what it
we
is.
could
It's a
make it part
report.
of the
It's a
agenda,
report, yeah.
Similar to how the NKC director is part of a board that, kind of reports to the city.
Yeah,
I see no issue with reserving a space for her.
right. I don't mind her
But we could do
reporting. I
that,
just
like,
don't
right
think it's a
after-
public comment.
Could just do it after public comment, library
Sure.
report.
Yeah, we could do that as well.
Mhm.
A couple other minor issues just to bring to your attention. There is a line in here that says this is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. I know that confuses a lot of people, which
Yeah.
is one of the reasons they say, oh, by the way, if you're on the
Yeah.
agenda, you
Yep.
get to
Yeah.
talk again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we could put a less on, and less specifically on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm just trying to gauge your interest right now.
Yeah, the difficulty is with that, if we don't have that there, is we then have people later who feel like they should be able to just respond to anything from the audience.
I'm just saying
I
perhaps
feel like,
a different way to put this.
Excuse me.
I just feel like less is more.
Mhm.
That, when you're reading all of that, people are not listening.
I don't think you need to read it, because it's on,
It's
they.
totally
they-
zoned out.
They grab the agenda, it's written on there.
Mhm.
I don't think it needs to be read.
So you want it just left in writing, but we don't read it?
Yeah.
I have no faith in people's ability to follow directions. I think it's very
We've done
important.
this once or twice.
I think it's very important that whatever our policy is, it is read very clearly.
Okay.
because
I think so
we're-
too.
Yeah. you're right.
There are an astonishing number of people, some of whom are in government, who do not have a great grasp on how other governmental entities do business. So
Cam reads really fast too.
that's fine.
I do.
I'm
At least it
okay.
Said, which
But I
is
mean,
why
that's what I
think it
mean, yeah.
needs To be shorter though.
Yeah,
Like,
it could
what
be
are our
shorter.
like, what do we
Yeah.
want you to actually know right now this second
Yeah.
Right.
before you come and talk to us?
Yeah.
And I can read slower
And I
if
feel
that's
like
the
it's
problem.
all time.
I didn't mean it was bad. I meant you
I
get
feel like
through
it's
it.
their time limit and how we're gonna respond, which is not.
Mm. No.
Well, and the main thing too is we're here to listen to the public. We need to allow them to have their 4 minutes.
Right.
We need to not debate. We need to have them talk their amount of time. And then they sit down and then we move forward. Granting extra time, I don't see as a big deal, but I think it's something that, and it's hard because it's like, how do we all know?
Well, and what I try to do, and I'm watching the clock, is I try to give a 30-second warning, and then I'll say, I will often say, you're at your 4 minutes. I'll give you 30 seconds
Sure.
to conclude.
Sure.
Because I don't know, it seems a little bit rude to say,
Sure,
stop talking.
right, right.
Why can't we just have like a stopwatch or something?
We can.
One of the
Then it's
reasons-
not you saying stop.
One of the reasons why we have that.
Object saying stop.
We used to have a tiny little clock up there, and there's a reason why we got a big clock. Now,
Yes.
something obviously that they do in the debate world is you can have a big clock right in front of you.
And
click.
we,
Well,
and
I
we,
think-
well,
I
we
like
we
that
have
idea.
time cards and we do 30
Um,
seconds, 15
um,
seconds, stop.
But it's not rude to say you have 30 seconds left. It's
Which is-
just not.
I don't think,
I think it's rude to sit there and have them go. I just don't think that's just.
And I mean,
It's
I
rude
do
to-
that as the debate coach and as a debate judge.
Stop.
And
I
I
don't feel
literally
like it's
flip
rude.
time cards and I do the 10 seconds. I can do 10 seconds on my
because
computer
then
if
it's not
you
a person telling them
But-
shut it. It's an object saying
but-
like beep beep.
Yeah, but
you're done.
she's a mayor. I mean, she has every right to say you have 30 seconds
Well,
left.
I'm not
and
saying she
people
does
would-
it
yeah.
exact. Oh, yeah.
And I
People
think
agree.
in my experience, if I say your 4 minutes is up, but I'll give you 30 seconds to
Yeah.
conclude.
Yeah.
Seems like a respectful way to say we're having a
Wrap it up.
public discourse here as opposed to stop talking, I'm not listening to you.
And just
So,
one final thing. So this is the last thing we addressed in your agenda, I believe. At the end, it says, please state your name and address for the record if you would like.
yeah.
Yeah.
This was a result of the school board requiring people to sign up and get permission to speak, which is a violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Mhm.
And now that we're on YouTube, I also just don't know that people should have to be putting their address out on video. I always say, if you would like a written response, you need to leave your,
So that's what I want to get into is I've never
But
once,
then who's writing the response?
I've never once given a written response to anybody.
if they asked you to.
So I would ask them to approach me before or after the meeting to discuss issues. I'm happy to respond in some. other
Yeah,
way, but
I
I'm
would
not-
love to take that line right out.
Yep.
I'm not going to take down their address and be like, oh, you said the thing at the whatever, and here's my response to it.
Mhm.
And I think the address, and this is just my opinion, if somebody lives in Timbuktu, their opinion is worth slightly less than if they live on Main Street.
Yes.
So I think that's why the address is in there, but you're right. I live at 123,
Yeah. and
Anywhere.
Everyone else, yeah.
probably not appropriate,
When we put them on YouTube.
but we're adults. You should have the ability and understanding to know that you're being recorded. I mean, we could put something here saying you're being recorded.
Well, I think that announcement at the beginning of the meeting that says
Recording.
beginning,
Oh, yeah.
we are beginning recording should be kind of, and then I don't know, the cameras.
But so I think there's some ways we could rejigger that portion and then the rest of the agenda is pretty, in my opinion, pretty good and pretty efficient. One thing I also mentioned is that
Building.
10H building inspections. We get reports, but we don't put them into your agenda.
Yeah.
So I know you guys have joked about that in the past, so with your permission, I'd like to remove it.
Yes,
Please.
please.
And then I guess, are there any other thoughts, questions, concerns that you guys would like to see other than what we've talked about? And, I will try to draft maybe an alternative public comment and then we can continue that conversation if there's things you like or don't like or missing or whatever.
I overall, and I'll go down and take a straw poll, but I overall feel like it's a pretty good document for as we work.
But yeah, sure, the document as a whole, but the building inspections I'd like to remove. And then
Yes.
I'd like to take one or two stabs at the public comment just to maybe make it. a little bit
Tighten it
more
up a
concise.
little. Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. Ms. Powell, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I thought the second paragraph in public comments was pretty much hit the nail on the head. Although I think it'd be nice to state your name, not mandatory, and address. You might want to say your city, but I don't think you need to give your home address.
A lot of people who don't understand where they live. Anyways,
Yeah.
and I don't mean that jokingly.
Mhm.
Oh, really?
People have postal addresses.
Mhm.
They say Cedar Springs from here to 30 miles out.
Well, there you go.
So I get phone calls from people who live in the townships thinking they live in the city.
Yeah,
Right.
we had this a lot on the marijuana ordinance. And we held town halls and we would have people come and say, well, I graduated from Cedar Springs School, so I should have a say.
But this
But I-
isn't like a registering of voting or anything. It's just like, I'm Rose Powell from Cedar Springs, or from Cedar Springs. That's it.
Yeah, well, I was agreeing with you. I'm saying their address probably doesn't really matter that much.
Right, right.
No.
Although I was at a city or a township meeting where if you wanted to speak, you did have to sign up with your name and address.
They probably violated the open meeting act.
There's
But
no
I didn't sign it. I just talked.
That's right.
Go Rose.
Yeah,
Actually not.
That's right.
I'm a rebel.
A rebel who follows the Open Meetings Act.
That's right.
Yes, I got a text, flying text Monday night about, are they allowed to limit to only people who live here? And are they allowed to limit to 30 minutes total comment? And I'm like, no, let me get a link to the Open Meetings Act.
So, with your permission, I'll bring those back to another meeting.
Perfect.
Okay,
Please.
I was just gonna go down. Lisa, any other, each person, any questions, thoughts, concerns about how we do?
No,
these?
just I think that some things sometimes end up in the public comments that don't need to be there. They could be in another spot. In the past.
Like making
For
sure that we
example-
know.
Okay, everybody's looking confused. For example, Algoma Township, I don't know that his spot should have been in the public comments. Especially with the reaction we got, because we didn't treat it like a public comment. So if we're gonna have them in public comments, we gotta treat it like a public comment.
And
Don't make any responses, don't,
yes,
just listen.
and I guess the problem with
So
that one
could
was.
have been in a different spot.
Yeah, well, he sent it to us 48 hours before. We don't add things to our agenda like that
Yeah,
48
I know,
hours
and I told
before,
him that personally.
which
Well-
is part of the problem.
If that's the issue, then we say you're coming back next month.
Yeah.
Right, which is
That- I mean,
probably what we
he-
should
he
have
was
done.
Told that.
Put it in the right
It was too
proper
late.
spot
Like
for
he'd
the
be
event.
allowed to make a public comment, it just would be under the public comment.
yeah,
rule.
no.
I'll give you,
Yes.
and I
It
guess
wouldn't
I
even
was,
Make a proposition.
and again, I was trying
Yeah.
to be gracious
Hold on.
with I guess I will give you extended time because you're asking for such a big thing. It's such a big ask.
Right.
But it is really wasn't appropriate that he was trying to make
Right.
that kind of ask with that kind of,
Time,
So-
well, that
Yeah.
time, I mean, he didn't.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I probably should have said, you get 4 minutes, talk, thank you, have a nice day.
Yeah.
That's what I should have done.
Well,
And-
that's neither here nor there, but I'm just saying, in the future.
Yeah.
You know,
You're absolutely right.
you know, might have to put it in a different spot. That's all.
Yeah, and do we still prefer that you have to have it in before the packet if we're gonna put it on the agenda?
Yes, and I told him that. I personally told him that. It was too
I
late.
believe the
It was
manager
too
told him
late to
that
be on the
too.
agenda
So why did it
this
happen?
time.
But then that's up to him to make.
Because
a
he just
public comment.
decided.
Exactly.
But
He can
he's not
decide that.
us.
I
Yeah.
understand.
You know
but
what I
then
mean?
I was told that we were putting it on top of the KDL and I didn't feel comfortable with that. So then I was told that right before the meeting. At which point I said, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
So I moved it to public comment, but said, I'll give you extended time.
Right.
I also didn't know he was bringing an additional person from his township board to insist.
I guess I don't think that matter, like what they say during the public
Public
matter,
comment.
or, yeah, public comment is up to them. If they want to make a huge crazy ask, then they can do that and we will just sit there and
Right.
watch them and then later ask questions.
I
Yeah, if we want
understand,
to.
but
So him having
there's
like
also-
an extra person, okay, you can. have
there's
all of
also
the township come.
professional courtesy of if there's a person who's a director from another, where you try to say, I will listen to you.
Yeah, and he didn't. So then the response back is gonna be nothing to
I-
him. It's
Right.
gonna be a public comment where you can make it just like any other citizen.
You're not wrong.
So
that
that
is
he-
what I should
like,
have
if that's
done.
What he chooses to do, then he chooses not to get a response back at this time.
It's kind of why we're having the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that
I'm
is,
just saying it wasn't fair of him to request
Exactly.
that and expect also that we were gonna have a full-on discussion.
Exactly.
Well, it
You
was
said at
also-
Public comment, it's a comment, that's it.
Mhm.
he also
Yeah.
tried to make a meeting with me at my work.
Yeah,
So
well,
we're really in the weeds.
So-
Yeah, this is just so if I could.
We move
Uh,
on,
so
please.
I think
Molly's got
that,
it.
Okay.
hindsight is 2020.
Exactly.
It was an unprecedented
Right.
situation that we learned several things from.
Mm-hmm.
I think once the packet is out, someone who is not us does not get to be added to the agenda because they said so, even if they are the president of the United States. Good luck.
Exactly.
Mr. Biden, please come give us your 4-minute comment. Thank you for your time. Have a good day. You know, but now we have learned things. And now we know.
Yep.
That is all.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, anything else? On the construct of because I'm asking each of you.
Yeah, no, I think we covered it.
And Renee?
We covered it.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
Yep, I'll come back at another meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Then moving on to discussion on recess under Robert's Rules of Order. And this was a wonderful catch from the clerk. We are supposed to vote to go into recess.
Okay.
So from Robert's rules, a request for a recess has to be seconded, is not debatable, and can be amenable to length of recess. Amendments are not debatable and requires majority vote.
Okay.
So I appreciate you letting people leave at previous meetings via recess, which we did not vote on, but apparently. So
Okay.
Okay, we
Very
got
good.
it.
So now we know.
And it's similar to what we would do if we vote to go into a closed
Closed
session to
session.
talk to the attorney or to do evaluation or review of an employee, same kind of thing.
Mhm.
So
So-
thank you for that catch. Greatly appreciated.
Look at us learning things
We're
together.
so learning
I
today.
know. So, but just goes to show you, this is why we have the clerk that we have, because she stays on top of that. Any other questions on that?
No, makes sense.
Okay, moving on, discussion on 2023 social district days and hours. This has been hugely popular.
Yep, so in addition to being hugely popular, I don't think we've had any problems. with it.
No.
So
We had any problems, Sergeant Probst?
Yeah, right.
So I know that this board has been walking very slowly on this. We've been very conservative on this, but you know, the brewery and the Redbird, who both sit on our DDA, have asked that we do it every day of the week, and the proposed hours, I think it was 12 noon to about 10 PM.
Mhm.
You know, people are not going to buy a beer at a restaurant and then just go walk around town. They're just not
No.
going to do that.
They walk down to listen to a concert or they.
Walk to the
Right.
concert, they
An
might
event thing.
sit in a parking lot or something next to the
I could see somebody getting a cocktail and going and walking around the farmer's market.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
could
yeah.
happen,
That'll be fun.
right?
I'll do that.
So
Yeah,
they're
1 hour to
requesting
do
that
it.
this board consider those hours. I haven't, I think what's in your packet is last year's, with last year's hours. And I guess unless I hear objections, I'll bring it back with the new proposed hours. And you guys can approve that at another meeting.
And I can tell you, having discussed it with DDA members, like they would really like this to expand. It would be very helpful for them.
If we haven't had any problems, what is this will be the 3rd year, right?
Yeah.
3rd season, whatever. I think we're doing well.
Okay? I think Ms. Powell, you had some of the greater concerns about it.
I'm just wondering if we're gonna have folks bringing their own alcohol down to the park in the afternoons or whatever, partying down. It's something we have to consider.
So technically, they're not allowed to do that under this, but
Mhm.
I mean, at some point, do we want to pay a police officer to go down there and harass people if they're not causing problems otherwise?
And I think you're actually less likely to get that if people can go purchase it in a cup that's designated and be fine, as opposed to they're not allowed to at all. So they stick it in a thermos from home.
And people can do that anyways.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. Like, I
Oh.
think that's gonna happen now.
Now, what's problematic, which could be resolved, is if somebody brings a pack of, a cooler with a pack of 24 Bud Lights or something, you can't
Or
be
a
drinking,
keg.
can't be drinking Bud Light, right? But
No one should be drinking Mud Light.
also true.
Now we're gonna get heat there.
By the city. It
I
is
mean, you
hers
can
of
drink
right.
Mud Light. It's fine, it's fine, but.
I second that.
Beer, so you're
In any case, I think this has been good for the community overall. It's been good for the businesses, and I think they feel like they've unnecessarily had artificial constraints.
Yes.
Constraints, and they'd like to see that changed.
Would that be just the day hours? Are we talking about the whole year or just
So-
summer?
I don't see too many people doing this in December.
Rockford?
But, you know, if we have events, if we have a farmer's market in
Mhm.
May,
Mhm,
and we have right up until Red Flannel Day events,
mhm.
probably expand the days of the week, expand the hours, but maybe keep the season in place.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, yeah.
Now, that being said, hopefully we'll have a pocket park at 17 North Main, which is set up for this type of thing.
When did
Yeah.
we find out about that?
We just last week found out we got the funding. I mean, we knew we were approved, but we didn't get the funding.
Right.
Our architect engineer was, ditching about in the Caribbean for 2 weeks, so I didn't get a hold of him until this week.
Good for him.
Good for him. So, yeah, but he's also one of these high value guys that a lot of people use, so
Yeah.
he's got limited number of days in the week.
Right.
But yeah, we're definitely moving forward on it.
I mean, is that something we're gonna see in the next year?
Should have it done this year.
Okay.
But right now, I'm focused on the sidewalk project and the Main Street repaving project.
Oh, remind me after the meeting, I have to talk to you about the sidewalk thing. There's a piece that's not correct. So, but anyway, so I know Ms. Powell, you were the one that had one of the greater concerns about the timeframe on that. Do you have any specific questions you would want to ask or?
I wasn't against doing 7 days a week. It was just doing it noon to 10 o'clock, what I thought was a little overdoing it, but we can try it, I guess, and if it gets a little too rowdy, we'll cut it back.
It's not broke. What did I say? If it's
It's not broke, don't fix it.
right.
There is authority under the social district plan to hold a hearing and change it midstream if we wanted to. So if things do get rowdy, if we do have problems, then we could change it.
My guess is that people are more likely to get rowdy at 10 o'clock at night than they are at noon, but I could be wrong.
So 10 o'clock at night was chosen because of the summer concerts go
Right.
till, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'm just saying, I think we already have them in the evening. I'm thinking if you're going to have rowdiness,
problem, is
it would be towards the evening. But I could be, I don't know. I'm not a big drinker, so what do I know? But anyway, did we address?
So I'll bring back another draft with the proposed hours and you
Thank
guys
you.
can discuss it more.
Okay.
And that would be where a good event organizer would be good to have around to keep an eye on things.
Absolutely. Then moving on to communications. And I'm just gonna put this like big chunk out there, because in the past I've went through the items and was told we probably didn't need to do that. So I'm just gonna say, here is the communications. Is there anything anyone would like to talk about?
So the only thing I'll point out is we did receive a application for the DDA from Mr. Cody Angel. I know, Madam Mayor, you were gonna reach out to him.
It's so on my list. You cannot believe the number of phone calls and meetings I've
So
done.
take a look at that. I will probably propose appointing him at the next meeting.
And he is a wonderful part of the community. He has been involved with the chamber. I've attended a couple of their meetings. And he's definitely committed to being Cedar Springs forward. So
Great.
And he works at the Tom Maybe CS Cannabis downtown.
Oh.
he was one of the people who came in when they had their licensing struggle.
Yep.
That he was the younger gentleman that
Perfect.
he also participated on Red Flannel. I saw he was one of the people who did a letter for us on a last minute thing for the grant when we needed one.
So the only other thing I'd point out is item P, Cedar Springs KDL draft agreement. This is a big convoluted situation. We're doing the best we can, but right now I'm taking the lead with Lance Warner from KDL to put together a draft agreement, which we think everybody would be okay with. At some point, this is only, I think, the second draft, so this is definitely not final. But at some point, I'm gonna bring it back to you guys and I'll be bringing it to the library board.
The library board would like it to start discussing it.
They've been given it.
Okay, Heidi talked to me.
They've had it longer than you guys have had it.
Works for me.
So, still working through that.
And I had a question from a library board person who was told that only the chair can put something on the agenda. And how might they ameliorate that if the chair is refusing to put something on the agenda?
So, my understanding of Robert's rules is that the executive can put things on the agenda and the secretary can put things on the agenda. Now, I know that they call one of their board members secretary,
Correct.
but my understanding of secretary is, the administrator. So, their administrator, the library director, should be able to put together their agenda, and as I understand it, she does.
That would not be what I've been told. I've been told their secretary does it, who is a member of the board.
And so that's their policy issue that they're gonna have to work out, but a majority of the board can also vote to put things on the agenda.
And
especially-
we were told, under a previous city manager who had told us we had to have at least 2 members of council approve putting things on the agenda. And we were told by the MML that, yeah, no, that's not how that works.
Is Cammy still up there?
I don't think so.
Mm-mm,
So I don't know what,
Well, maybe she is.
mm-mm.
I don't know what you mean by. two
I am still here and
go ahead,
sorry, I do not put the agenda together. I'm given a copy and I have asked on behalf of people to put things on the agenda, but it's up to the secretary who creates the agenda and sends it to the chairperson.
Can the secretary simply refuse to put something on the agenda?
I don't know that they refused. I think it may have been, I have to get the chairperson to approve it being put on the agenda.
That was what they said, that only the chairperson can approve something being put on the agenda. And I think that's not accurate.
I could put a little bit more work into it.
Well, and again, I dug into Robert's rules too. And it looked like to me, any trustee or board member can ask to have something put on the agenda. And the rest of the board members or trustees can vote to have it put on the agenda. That's the way I understand the rule.
And that is true for Robert's rules. We had an additional piece from the MML under the Open Meetings Act. Do you remember our training that we had for that? Where my understanding, and it's been a while since we did this training, and I need to go print the 40 pages of the OMA, but which I've been back in more than I would have expected in the last week and a half from questions from people. But that anybody on the board can add something to the agenda if it is put out before the agenda is published. That was one of when we were having an issue with, the chair said that only the chair could do it or 2 people on the board.
Mhm.
Madam Mayor, you think that's in OMA?
I think it's in the OMA.
I don't remember ever seeing that.
I'll look for that too.
And those videos live on YouTube from MML,
Well,
but they were quite a while ago from our training.
Yeah.
again, this is just my opinion, but this board is dedicated to transparency. and
Yes,
Not all boards are.
right.
And so you can meet the absolute bare minimum requirements of the law and still
Yes.
technically be legally operating. It's probably a horrible way to run your board. And frankly, I think you're promoting governmental opacity instead of transparency,
Right.
and should be discouraged. That's just my opinion. But yeah, 4 members of the board can add anything to the agenda that they want, as far as I'm concerned.
So I'm gonna be rereading the full Michigan OMA again, this on my break for the next couple days. So I can try to get some questions out to some people from library board, from citizens in Algoma who've been texting me, from a variety of, I do know that you cannot require only citizens to speak at public comment, which is something that recently happened. I also know that you cannot limit the total time of your public comment to say, we had this at the school board at one time that it was problematic.
Yeah.
Cause that apparently also happened Monday night there will be a total of only 30 minutes and that's. not a
Algoma.
thing. That's not a thing. So there's a variety of, and that you could only speak on agenda items.
Yeah.
Also not a thing. So But anyway, that's neither here nor there. With communications, that's the only, I've had an awful lot of that in the last little bit. My phone is full of texts, like 5 today.
Now, of course, and I'm not suggesting anything, but if the library board is not operating in an appropriate fashion, that board could also consider modifying their bylaws and or voting to change leadership to move the needle forward.
There's a couple of things I may, at some point, I've been trying to get a hold of one member who has family in the hospital, and there's been a variety to see if we need to even just temporarily replace that person. Other people are being instructed to not attend, at which point they might not have a quorum. So they wouldn't be able to conduct business. And so if that is the case, then I need to get a person in that seat, even if it's for the next 3 months. So I might be asking for a special meeting at some point to do that. If this one person who's having a medical problem can't come and other people are being instructed not to come. I'm not quite sure. There's also some difficulty with the chair. I don't know if that's a thing where,
So I attended a meeting with Ms. Howe and a representative from the Lakeland Cooperative, members of the Solon Township Board and Library Board. And one of the things I noticed is that Carol from the Lakeland Cooperative had a handbook for library trustees.
Mhm.
While perusing it, I identified a section about conflicts of interest. And one of the things that was stated in that conflicts of interest section was that township trustees should not serve on a township library board. And so we do have one member of that board who serves on both the library board and the township board. So I did,
that member is actually the chair of both the library board and the township board.
so I did point that out, but I'm not in a position and really shouldn't. It's not my, my concern. But that's something that I think both boards should probably discuss.
And then were we getting a legal opinion on that from the,
So we are not in a position to
I
force
see.
the issue, but
I
the
see.
library board and the township board probably should. And that's just my opinion.
okay.
Have we heard anything more from our lawyer about who's?
Who's in charge of the contract?
So, our attorney just wasn't able to prepare for this meeting to go into
Okay.
closed session, but I suspect probably at your next meeting, we might.
Okay.
I may be asking for a special meeting for 4 people to appoint a library board person if they're not gonna have a library board person and then they won't have a quorum. So,
One question, so, I had, kind of in that same vein as, a supervisor of one board should not be on the other. I think that would also apply to members of the board, not just, if you're chair of one.
yes,
Okay, so it would not be appropriate for a city council member.
no,
Very good.
no, we have to find someone else.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, so there are very specific rules about this codified in state law. But it's not just the Incompatible Offices Act, which is what I'm referring to. But it's also just a perception of conflict of interest about whether you are telling yourself how to act on one board from the other, if you're authorizing yourself to be paid from one board to the other.
If you're signing contracts,
You're potentially signing contracts with yourself. Yeah, so there's a lot of issues here, and frankly, I'm a little surprised it's taken this long for somebody to notice that there's a potential conflict of interest. But I was thankful for Carol from Lakeland Cooperative to have that trustee manual, which I was able to look at, which apparently all these library trustees have that manual, but they have not apparently brought this situation to anybody's attention.
so that was just, I've had several library board people actually talk to me about some concerns with this.
So that all, I'm sure, relates to the KDL draft agreement, which is in your communications.
Yeah, well, there's a piece of like, who would say that this is a conflict? Like, who would be the arbiter? And how would they go about that?
Well, it could be the Attorney General's office or the Kent County Prosecutor if we're talking about the incompatible offices. Act.
That was the question, yes.
But as far as conflict of interest, it's a little bit more complicated.
Okay. Good enough. I just need to know where to direct them. All right, any other questions on any communication? Then, hearing none, we will move on to we're gonna do, the council comments before we go into closed session is the plan?
But we got departmental report.
Oh, department reports, I'm sorry. So, city manager.
Yes, thank you. So as you guys are aware, normally we would have had this meeting last week, but I was up in Mount Pleasant taking the zoning administrator certification class. Which apparently that combined with my basic citizen planner class that I took previously automatically makes me a master citizen planner.
Wow.
So I
Woo.
expect you all to call me
Yeah.
master city
Oh,
planner.
Not gonna happen.
I'm not
So-
gonna,
No,
hard pass.
No.
But, 7 years ago, I kept thinking to myself, well, we're busy during the summer and then during the winter, we'll slow down a little bit. I'll get other stuff done. The sidewalk project, the mill and fill project, all the farmer's market, all this stuff. We've been very busy at City Hall. And staff continues to be amazing. I couldn't ask for a better staff, so. Other than that, my wife and I have a cruise that we're gonna go on. I'll send
Yay.
details about that. And then, part of the reason, don't tell, Councilor Race, that we've put your budget, discussion into March 30th, I think it is because I have that previous week with no meetings currently scheduled, so I might go away for a couple days.
Good.
We'll see about that.
I think you get to go away. Or is this a matter of she has to watch your dogs?
Oh, no.
No, so this is actually, I'm currently a basic open water diver, scuba diver. And I've been meaning for years to become an advanced scuba diver, but it takes 2.5 days, I think, of diving to do that. And so when I take my wife to like Hawaii or something, she doesn't want me diving for 2.5 days. So I think I might sneak away to the closest Caribbean island for like a 3-day trip, just me, have my wife watch the dogs. And I'll spend the entire time scuba diving.
I get it.
Do we have to call you master scuba diver when you come?
No, because
We could call him Master Scooby.
I like that now.
That's a good
I
one.
had too many Scooby snacks today. No, there actually is a master scuba diver certification,
Mhm.
so that's not appropriate. On you, Ms. Hamel.
I like Master Scooby. That's good. We could require Scooby snacks. All right. Anything else, Mr. Manager, from your report?
No, I did tell Mr. LaRose to skip tonight's meeting. As you guys noticed, there's some fluffy white stuff on.
A little bit.
Likely be up at 3 or 4 in the morning.
There's some ice underneath of it.
Yeah, so he'll be up early, so I told him just go to sleep.
And just so you know, Cedar does not have school. Most of Kent County does not have school tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
It's well, but I mean, one of the questions I often get when you're talking, and I know staff isn't here tomorrow, but when you're talking about getting roads cleared and stuff, I often get a text or a message about, is school closed? Is school on a delay? Because how do we, and there is.
They're
no
on a
school.
break.
They're on a break. So, and the collective calendar is for Kent County, so most of the schools will be closed tomorrow. So just as an FYI.
All right, just one more thing. Monday's a holiday and City Hall will be closed.
The schools are closed too.
What is this holiday?
Like peasants say, I get it.
Not going, not doing it. Okay,
Cedar's closed Monday and Tuesday.
I have to work on it.
I know, I'm not really gonna be working.
I'm teaching on Tuesday, but Cedar's closed on Tuesday. So. All right, so police department, anything to tell us?
I have my report.
I heard you all, well, I was in bed the other night with the screeching thing coming from Sparta that went through town and.
Oh, what was it? Pursuit.
Oh,
Well, it was a bye-bye.
And it, yeah, near Grant or. But I heard you go by, so Thank you.
Good. That's the important thing.
Yeah, that was
Hold
sort of
on.
the thing.
That's interesting.
And fire department, anything from us, Marty?
If you can hear me,
We can hear you.
I have nothing. We had a very busy year. Hopefully in your package, you got my service repair work, sheet and the year-end synopsis. It gives you a little something to read, when nothing else is being, going on at your house. Like I said, we had a very busy year. We had a good year, but, very, very busy. We set, a record for number of calls, so. With the expansion, housing and businesses and stuff going in, I can only foresee a busier year yet, so. We're doing well.
Good job, Marty.
Awesome. Thank you. As always, you and the rest of the fire department are just phenomenal.
Well, I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Please do. City clerk, Madam Clerk.
You guys have my report. The only thing that I would add is that, April, the deputy and we went and observed some of the county audits downtown. For other jurisdictions, we were not chosen for an audit for the November election, but we went down and observed, and it was a great opportunity for us to see the process and learned a lot from that. Other than that, we'll hopefully be able to put November to bed here in a few weeks. So.
All right, just in time to start getting ready for May, right?
We will not have a May election either.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yes, I'm very
That's
thankful
good.
for that. Just a small little breather before we get into the fall.
All right. Then Finance Director, anything from us, Darla?
You have my report in your packet as well. There is one thing I wanted to mention is that my deputy finance director earlier this month turned in a letter of resignation. To do the kind of work that we do, you need to be the right person. You need to want to work with numbers like we do. Attention to detail is very important.
Oh.
And she just felt that this was not a good fit for her. So I wish Julie well in her future endeavors. It was nothing to do with the city or anything. It was just something she chose. This she felt was not the right fit for her. So I wish her well.
Okay, so we're looking for a person.
I mean,
We're looking for lots of people.
we're looking for lots of people, so, we do have a great, deputy clerk, that works with Rebecca, and, we'll figure it out.
Always do.
We always do, but yes. Okay. Code enforcement, building inspection, any,
Code enforcer still has a tough job, just like last month, but she does a pretty good job of it.
I have a question on building inspection. So we have a company that we
We've had
I
a
don't want to say
contract.
farm out, but we contract with, right? And if they determine that there's a problem, do we have, we're not in that, am I right?
I don't know what you mean by in that.
We don't step into the middle of that.
Kind of do, so.
Okay,
We contract with IMS, Imperial Municipal Services out of Rockford as our building inspector. And they take care of the engineering and the electrical and plumbing and all the other things. If there is a problem, like somebody's not pulling their permits or somebody's got a violation or whatever else, they don't do the enforcement.
okay,
They simply tell us, hey, we've got this problem, the city needs to take care of it. And then we have the code enforcement officer and city attorney who will then take care of the enforcement action, calling them as witnesses if necessary.
okay.
That's what answers your.
I think so. I think so. I can talk more. I have another question specific, but
Talk about it later.
yes, we will. Then I think board and commission minutes. I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of those.
But one thing I would point out is, we have the North Kent Community Richmond, and we have the library, planning commission, DDA. We could start populating this with more of your minutes if you really wanted them to. Of course, we make all this stuff available on our website.
Right.
Small town, you guys are fairly familiar just from my reports about what's going on. But I didn't know if you guys wanted me to start asking the library specifically to start sending us their minutes on a more regular basis.
That would be helpful, especially since we're in this position of having to, figure out,
Negotiate the
yeah, what this contract issue is and might have to replace some board members if people aren't able to attend meetings and
So I will start asking the library to start submitting their minutes on a more regular basis.
it also would be helpful, like if we have the link to them, because I have people asking me from Algoma about the links for the minutes. And I'm like, well, go to the library website but if they were available at the city, that would also be helpful.
So I don't think it's appropriate to put the library's minutes on our website.
Put a link to them.
But if they're gonna be part of our packet, you could easily go into our packet.
That works too. It's just that trying to be able to find them to navigate if someone has a question.
Sure, in the packet.
In the packet. That's an excellent way to do that. And then, I haven't seen this on our agenda in a while, but Skinner Field.
Yeah.
What's up with?
going on?
Good question.
Okay.
So unfortunately, the leadership team that runs Skinner Field is, difficult to get a hold of sometimes and not responsive.
I understand they're all volunteers and,
But, you know, we have a contract with the Friends of Skinner Field who basically autonomously operate and run Skinner Field. And so technically, under the agreement, they're supposed to come once a year, provide us all sorts of information. And when we have asked them to do that in the past, they have been difficult to get a hold of and difficult to get them to come to our meetings and difficult to respond. So we could terminate that agreement and say, sorry, you can't use our field anymore because you're not responsive. Well, now the field's not gonna be used, not gonna be maintained, and the city's gonna then have to take on that additional maintenance. So they're not the easiest people to work with, but they do a pretty good job of maintaining and scheduling.
there has been some problems with the football, the minor league football team,
If you mean the amateur adult football team,
that one.
yeah, so, we did have some issues where the city manager happened to be driving through and discovered that there was a pot smoking party going on in the parking lot.
Also been some alcohol issues and,
Alcohol issues, threats of violence, all sorts
Yeah.
of things. And so I took it upon myself this year to say, city is not interested in having adults play at this field,
okay,
because they've only caused problems in the past.
okay,
So the kids do a great job. There's plenty of kids out there playing and that's
Yes.
what we want to see.
yes.
Um,
And we're happy to have the community go walk on the track during the days and
Yep.
I've done lots of walking a baby in a sling around that track once upon a time.
I run there on a weekly basis for so
Sure. So, but I know that was a problem last year, but that is resolved.
I believe it's resolved at this point.
Okay. So I guess. Meh. We have feelings on wanting the manager to pursue trying to get a hold of them, or is it not worth the time and energy and?
I'd like to have them drop in and say hello and what's going on.
I will attempt to do so, but I
Okay.
cannot promise because
Don't put lots and lots of time into
Well,
it.
when we were trying to get this contract signed again last time, we said to them, we need to be able to get a hold of you.
Yeah,
And they assured us it was gonna change,
people can assure you of all sorts of things. and then
get what they want, and then
We'll just make note of that
yeah.
in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like I said, if they're not taking care of it, who will?
Right.
We could try
No,
to,
I'm not saying that we need to disband it, but I'm just saying,
I've had
what happened to
alternative
them.
groups approach the city and offer to take that responsibility on. And I said, great, send me, your ideas and thoughts, and then I never hear from them again.
and there were soccer people that wanted it one time, but that also involved completely removing the track and which I know people run on.
Which I don't know why they need to remove the track for soccer. It's the same size, but
I don't know.
Um,
That was their thing at the time. I was gonna say, I think it's the size. They were gonna take out the track. That was part of that was the deal breaker, actually.
All right.
in any case, they're currently taking care of it. They're scheduling games, they're maintaining it. They're not responsive to the city. It's however you want to deal with it. Now, if the city were to take it on and kick Friends of Skinner Field off there, I think there's ways we could better utilize the field for public use, which would probably cost a significant amount of money, like the fencing. I'm not sure the fencing is really necessary, unless we want to allow people to rent it out. Because the whole point of fencing is to exclude people, right?
Right.
And
I-
cars, and people turf that in a minute.
I think there are ways you could maintain cars off the field without fencing.
Yeah, you can put up posts. Well, you put posts that make it so a car doesn't fit.
But I think, the fencing makes it look less attractive. And I think it makes it look less inviting. I think there's a lot of people out there who don't realize that the public is free to use. it.
Yeah, it doesn't look as public.
Well, that used to be the school field. so-
Right.
In any case, so at some point, if we want to terminate our agreement with Friends of Skinner Field for various reasons, there are things we could do. It'll cost money.
And at the moment,
Everything does.
I don't know that if that's important to y'all, tell me.
It's important to
Yeah,
hundreds of families, that's all I care
But I
about.
mean, if it's important to
Awfully cheap.
take it back from Skinner Field and take it
Well,
over, if that
not
becomes a
this-
thing.
not at
Still
this point.
running good.
Like,
I'm gonna go, but crap.
all right, I'm not suggesting we sell it off or build condos on it. Here, put your apartment over there. Yeah, no, let's not do that. All right, then I think
Comments?
we are at council comments. Yes. Ms. Powell.
Good night tonight, everybody. Appreciate everything and be careful driving home. And
Lovely.
that's it. Thank you.
Ms. Race.
It's a good meeting. A lot of communication, a lot of things were getting figured out. We have a lot coming this summer. New sidewalks and new Main Street. It's just exciting to finally see these things happen. Not cheap, so that's why it takes time, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
Ms. Atchison.
I just wanted to, address, the comment that maybe we should have the same people in the same household in leadership positions on the council and the, planning commission. A lot of times, there are nominations and only one person is nominated. And sometimes that ends up being people from the same households. I mean, those people are well qualified and those are the people that we as a board voted on. So it's got nothing to do with any nepotism or anything else. It just has to do with who we think is gonna be able to run the meetings correctly and who has the most, know-how. And, it just happens to be that way. And nobody else really wanted to be nominated, so, that's basically where it goes from there.
I'm looking for a person for planning commission right now. So, because we've had a resignation and I'm trying to fill a seat. So I am regularly,
Yeah, come on
Um,
out if you think that we're not doing things right. Come on out and join a board.
There you go.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. That's Miss Powell sits on so many boards because she
She's
can.
willing.
Yeah, it's fun.
And so, that's just, she's on the DDA and yeah, in addition to council and so yes, but you're absolutely right. And by the way, we have a whole lot of openings. If somebody out there would like to be on a thing, I've got a place for you. So please, I have a lot of spots that the manager will say to me, have you found someone for the, I'm like, I haven't. So I'm trying. So yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Miss Hamel,
I just want to say thank you guys because I had fun today. It was a good meeting, productive, I think. Went through a lot of stuff. And then yeah, that's it.
Miss Nixon.
Well, I'm glad to have made it.
Yes.
Roads were interesting, so
Yes.
yay for that, and, thank you for coming. Good.
It is.
all I got.
It has. It has been a very long day. And thank you for muddling through with me. What I was clearly very frustrated at our last regular meeting with this situation with Algoma. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still frustrated. I still feel like I get texts and things spilling over onto me with questions about Robert's rules and about, just a whole plethora of things that, yeah, so, but I'm trying to get my arms around it and handle it in a more professional way now that I have a better understanding of what it is that's coming at me. So, I appreciate your support as I have been trying to sort that out. And we try to continue to sort out this issue with the library and who the contract is with and how that works and who's responsible and what it is that's supposed to be happening there. And we will continue to try to figure that out with them and support them and do what we need to do. So with that, we are taking a motion.
I'd like to take a recess vote for a few minutes.
So I was just gonna say, I didn't know if you wanted an actual motion and then, well, we have to move to go into closed session, but we should recess first. Is that what we're saying?
For a couple of minutes. if you-
Okay, so I would take a motion to recess.
I will make that motion.
Is there a
Recess.
second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are recessed at 9:20. And then, I don't know, 5-ish minutes? And then we'll go into closed session. All right, so I need a motion to come back from recess.
I'll make that motion.
I would second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We are back in session, and then I need a motion to go into closed session to meet under the MCL section 15.268, section D, to talk with our attorney about contracts.
Talk with your city manager.
City manager. Oh, is the attorney not here?
No, this is just for me.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're in closed session. I don't think I
Should we
gavelled, but
close
there
the
we go.
door?
We close the
We
door.
should close the door.
All right.